What's up, what's up? What else should I add to this thumbnail? What's up, guys? I don't have any fancy edits, different camera angles. What I do have, though, is the method that helped me actually drop any habit I wanted to instantly. And that's not clickbait. For the longest time, I took the pussy-ass approach of, this progressive deloading mindset that I do 3, then I do 2, then I do 1. And, we kind of negate all of the bad habits that way. It doesn't work, okay? The thing is, your human mind obviously has a lot of decisions it can make. If this is a decision tree, it has quite a lot of branches. You can do this decision, you can do that one, which will lead to a bunch of other decisions, which will lead to a bunch of other decisions. And you have a lot of decisions that you can potentially make. The problem with this is that if you have a lot of things available to you, such as, you can either do the thing or you can not do the thing, you have infinite decisions available to you. The thing is, you're going to end up thinking about it, and you're going to end up sometimes indulging in the fact if it's an opportunity for you. And the reason I don't really fuck with this approach is every time I tell myself that I'd play like 1 hour of video games max, kind of limiting my amount of time I can play or something like this, I would play one game, cool, that's fine, I'll play for like 40 minutes, that's about how long a League of Legends game takes. And then I'd be like, wait, hold on, I'm not going to sacrifice the rest of the 20 minutes, so the only logical outcome is to play another one, Okay, but tomorrow I'll play one less game, and that's going to average out to 1 hour. But the thing is, once I already played the second game and I was already like overtime, I'd just be like, well, the rule's broken anyway now, so why not do another one? And I ended up playing 5 games that day, and my streak of not playing a lot of video games lasted for less than 1 day. So the thing is, if you're a bit like me and you're a bit more obsessive, and I think humans are quite naturally like this, you're not going to keep these rules, because the problem with the rules is that if they're broken, they're broken. Even criminals, once they commit one crime, which gets documented on camera, they're like, fuck it, it's all or nothing. Either I get caught and I get put into jail, or I don't. So it doesn't really matter from that point on. We kind of think the same way. When we break our rules, when we become incongruent, that's it, right? From that point on, it doesn't matter that much. And this is why, keeping streaks is just not the best mindset, because it doesn't really work that way, right? Imagine if I have a bunch of days in a row where I don't play video games, and then on one day I do play video games, I could be like, oh fuck, the streak's ruined, and I play again. The thing is, that's what my mind is going to tell me, but realistically, the best thing is to just still not play video games, even if that one relapse happened, right? But that's just not how our mind works, unfortunately. So this is the problem why, this cringe kind of progressive deloading mindset doesn't work that much. So how do you just stop now? I promise you it's a lot more than me just shouting at you motivational fucking quotes and saying just stop, try hard. There's actually something behind this, so let me explain. The problem arises when the 2 options are presented to you. When you have the option of doing the thing, when you actually have the option of giving in, that leads to you doing it again and again and again, just like in this example. The way to negate this is to literally not have your mind consider this an option. So the way you kind of need to think of this is that this option is logically there. This is supposed to be like a dotted line. I clicked a bit way too much maybe. But for people like Tom, for example, that's the reason he's here. This is how it looks. His yes option in this decision graph where, he's faced with junk food, let's say, he doesn't really have a yes option. It's kind of dotted out. Although it would be a potentiality, in his reality, it doesn't really occur. He has such a strong identity of being an athlete, he's like, oh no, I don't do that. And this is where the biggest lesson actually comes in, the don't versus shouldn't mindsets. Most of us operate in the shouldn't mindset, which I also call the bargaining mindset in some of my videos. You might actually remember this. We operate in the kind of perspective where we tell ourselves that, oh, I really shouldn't do that because I'm on a diet. Oh, I shouldn't do that because my mum told me not to. I shouldn't do that because of blah, 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 blah. The problem with this is that it's still a potentiality, right? If you shouldn't, it doesn't mean you're not going to. We break rules all the time. And if you start thinking in the shouldn't perspective, yes is very much an option. Whatever kind of vice you think about, right? You start to think about it. You start to conceptualize it. You can start to visualize it. And once you've visualized it, a lot of people who have actually studied dopamine and know what it's actually about, most people don't in this online space, your dopamine trigger starts a lot before you start indulging in the thing. Dopamine is kind of the want and the motivation hormone. The way it starts getting triggered is by the initial kind of thing. Once you get this thought implanted in your mind of maybe what it would be to crack open that cold beer, to indulge in that drug, to touch yourself. These kind of things, which are high dopamine activities, they only start getting the cravings once you get the initial urge. Now, of course, the best thing would be to kind of avoid urges whatsoever, but sometimes you're going to be walking in the city center and you're going to smell that majestic smell of kush, and you're just going to be like, damn, I want to smoke some. And this is where this mindset is so prominent, because with the shouldn't people, they're going to be like, damn, I shouldn't smoke weed, I shouldn't go ask them for some, or I shouldn't go and, hit up my plug. But the thing is, you're going to start visualizing it. You're going to start thinking about the odor now. You're going to start thinking about what it would feel like, what it felt like last time you were high. And that's going to lead to an option of indulging in it. Now, I'm not going to say you're going to indulge in it every single time, because this is where discipline comes in, and this is where everyone who's, obsessed with discipline is like, no, you got to resist and shit like this. But I don't like resisting, right? Even when you start thinking about it, let's say there's a 30% chance that you end up indulging in. I have a better solution. And that's the don't mindset. Because Tom Aspinall, when he smells kush, he's like, right? Maybe he likes drugs, I don't know. But because he is an athlete and he hasn't done them for a long time, and he doesn't fucking do them because he knows they're detrimental to your health, he doesn't. For him, this yes route is like dotted out. He doesn't even see it, right? It would be a potentiality in reality because, some people do it. But in his reality, his universe, he doesn't. He just doesn't see it as an option. He literally doesn't. I'm an athlete. I don't do that. If someone offered him like a hit, he'd just be like, oh no, I don't do that. He literally wouldn't have a second thought about it. Well, you're there in this bargaining mindset. And when you're bargaining, when you're in the shouldn't mindset, what ends up happening is you have a conversation with yourself, your heart and your brain. They start talking and you're like, oh, it would feel so good. And your brain's like, no, we shouldn't do it because it's unhealthy. And then you'll be like, oh yeah, but I haven't done it in so long, it's kind of fine. Oh no, but zero tolerance, zero is the best. Oh no, yeah, but it's actually going to be a bonding experience with my friends. You know what I'm talking about here, right? You have these conversations with yourself all the time. This is resistance speaking. You have these conversations, which is your lizard brain trying to give in to these vices. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't ever do this. It's actually a very important thing that you do this quite often. Let me explain. So the biggest thing in actually being able to adopt the don't mindset is that you don't adopt it for every area of your life. So for example, I eat junk food. I'm proud to admit it because, okay, I'm not necessarily proud. That sounded a bit weird. But I'm not ashamed at least, right? Because it's not that big of a thing for me. I never really realized stopping junk food as like a big battle for me to kind of conquer, because I never had a problem with it, right? I only eat it like once every few months, or maybe once or twice a month, but it's not often. I don't think it's like ruining my life, right? Maybe I'm like 97% optimized, and if I quit, I would be 100% optimized. Honestly, I don't think it's worth like trading my willpower and time and energy to get that 3% improvement. That's just where I'm at right now. However, with something like Instagram and doom scrolling, I am in the don't mindset, okay? Because it's a battle that I'm willing to take. I hate doom scrolling. I hate being emotionally fluctuating every time I see a different reel. It brings me into a different world. Every 30 seconds, I'm feeling a different emotion. My brain is fried. My attention span is fried. I don't want that for myself. I trust myself and respect myself enough to not do that to me. And I really, really don't want to do this. And I uninstalled Instagram, and I'm not going back because I don't do that. That's not who I am. Do you understand? Now, if you had the don't mindset with everything and you were just like, I'm going to become Superman and I'm not going to do any of the bad habits, it's not going to fucking work, okay? Because the two things you need to do is you need to be 100% certain about the few things which you're going to be in the don't mindset on. So it's only going to be like a limited amount of things, a low amount of things. And the second thing is you need to have 100% conviction in yourself not doing the thing. The way you have 100% conviction is you really play it out. You go back to these potential urges which you're going to get, and you're going to be like, well, when am I going to get the urge to open up Instagram? This is exactly what I did. I was like, well, maybe my friend's going to send me something funny. Okay, that's a potentiality, that could happen. Okay, maybe I'm going to, want to look at this girl from high school's Instagram, that could happen. Maybe I'm going to want to see when this event is happening. Yeah, that could happen. Are those like actually that important? The event I could check out if it was really important on like a different social media. The rest of the thing is I don't really think they're that important. So yes, even in the worst case, even when I'm feeling lonely, even when I want to get the urge to, numb myself and doom scroll, I'm going to be able to actually like negate that. That is so important to me that I don't doom scroll, that those I can deal with. However, when I'm like, walking around the city center, I'm super hungry, I have a big craving, my friends are telling me to go, I'm not going to be the autist to turn it down and be like, no, sorry, this 1% improvement is important for me. Respect if you are. Like, I'm not trying to disrespect anyone. Like, Tom Aspinall doesn't do this, right? He's also in the don't mindset with junk food. But it's just not me. It's not that important for me. So pick your battles wisely. That's the first thing. And the second one is actually be 100% convicted that this is important for you and you're actually not going to do it. Because the thing is, once you're in this mindset and you've genuinely locked it in for yourself, this is the reason you haven't been able to do this in the past. Because you haven't been 100% certain. You were kind of like half-assed yourself and you were like, yeah, it's really bad to, play video games. And so I'm going to try not to play video games. Exactly what's wrong with you, okay? Exactly the shouldn't mindset. I'm going to try not to. That's still having this as a potentiality. That's still having yes as an option. You're not going to try. You're not going to do that. You're not a person who does that. Attach a label to yourself. Yes, labeling is good in this aspect because if you're a person who doesn't, you're not going to enter this fucking bargaining mindset and you're not going to enter this mode, right? So be 100% certain with the few battles that you pick. I think it's in The Art of War, the best fighter or something picks the best battles. That's a horrible paraphrase, but you understand what I'm trying to say. And what you'll notice is if you actually lock in this mindset and if you really ingrain it deep into your psyche, you're just not going to get as many urges either, even without changing your direct environment. Some urges that would have came your way if you kind of considered and you were still in this kind of yes or no mindset where both are potentialities, you're just not going to notice these options. Some urges and some things will come to you, and that's why we needed to visualize what the worst kind of urges and triggers will look like. But these you will be able to beat easily if you actually have conviction in yourself and you're actually in the don't mindset and you've like truly manifested this label into your reality. So this is how to beat any habit now.